Yo, what's going up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the 17 weapons that they buffed in the last hotfix. I'm pretty much going to review all of them all in one video. Now, with that being said, we're going to go over some of them pretty quickly, and then I got some that I really want to point out and kind of, talk about a little bit more. So, of course, before we get into the video, don't forget to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Borderlands 3 videos or more content like this in general, and I would really appreciate it, and that would really help me out. So let's get straight into it. Now, like I said, let's hop straight into it. First, we're going to quickly go over the weapons that I don't really care to showcase. Either they weren't buffed enough or they were very buffed and we already know they're really good. There are some on this list that I really want to talk about, and actually some that I want to showcase, like the Lucian's Call, for example. So first off, we're going to talk about the Reflux and the Brainstormer. Both of these weapons were buffed to chain more often. This buff was absolutely sufficient. These were probably the highest impact weapons on this buff list. They are doing phenomenally. Now, when I say that, both of them are doing phenomenally, obviously the Reflux is just a more powerful Brainstormer, so you pretty much want to stick to the Reflux. And also, I already posted a 3-shot Fade Flak build with the Reflux in it, so that will be in the description down below if you want to see how to absolutely destroy on Flak. Check that out. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the Root. Now, the Root is a Malawan sniper from DLC 3. Basically, the only buff they actually gave this was lower charge speed time, and I actually think this was a pretty decent buff to it. You can spam it a little bit more, and it's not one of those snipers that's really ammo inefficient. It's actually pretty ammo efficient. Now, one cool fun fact I want to toss out there is the clone actually uses this weapon a lot better now. So I think this weapons buff was most impactful on the clone, but you can just spam this weapon a little bit more and a little bit easier, and you can push out a lot higher DPS with it, in my opinion, or at least a decent amount. So I think that was pretty cool, and I just wanted to mention that. Now, the next 4 weapons we're going to talk about, I'm going to toss their names up on the screen. We've got the Lead Sprinkler, the Bearcat, the Fastball, and the Carrier. Now, these 4 weapons are here because I don't think that these were buffed nearly enough. All 4 of these weapons, when I tested them on stream, myself and my entire chat agree that all of these weapons are unfortunately pretty bad. So these need another buff. The Bearcat just doesn't do nearly enough damage. The Lead Sprinkler, I couldn't even get it to kill Trot in a reasonable amount of time, and mine had the Badass Anointment on it. The Fastball, some of you guys might have seen some Fastball clips on Twitter from Jolts, or you might have been watching K6's stream and him talking about it. When I threw the Fastball at some enemies, nothing died. So the Fastball needs a hard buff. The Fastball needs a Lob style buff where it's absolutely wrecking things. That would be pretty cool, but yeah. And then finally the Carrier. The Carrier is just another weapon that is just really underpowered, and it just needs another buff. And that takes us into our next 4 weapons. These weapons are decent, but I don't think they were buffed enough even still, at least if we want these weapons to be competitive in Mayhem 10, which may not be what what the devs want, whatever, but these 4 weapons are the Mongol, the Wagon Wheel, the Hyper Focus, and the Unseen Threat. Now, the Mongol actually seemed to do some pretty good damage. It was actually pretty good for bossing. I believe I killed Graveward with it in 2 shots on a Zane build, so that was pretty cool. Of course, we had to hit his crit spot. The main downside of the Mongol is that the rockets, when you shoot them, they're not homing at all, and they kind of just go all over the place. So this weapon might just be hard to make good because of how crazy the projectiles are and stuff like that. The Wagon Wheel, I tried out, and it was pretty decent, but it was just kind of average. It was just kind of meh. I rated it about a 5.5 or a 6 out of 10. It just wasn't up there with some of the good weapons, but it wasn't half bad. That brings us into the Hyper Focus. Same deal as the Wagon Wheel. It's a little bit stronger than the Wagon Wheel. I believe I rated it a 6.5 out of 10. It was decently buffed, but just once again, pretty average and just kind of meh. And that's what this category is all about, just average weapons that maybe could use another buff if we want them to be competitive in Mayhem 10. Finally, that brings us to the Unseen Threat. Now, the Unseen Threat was actually, the main damage of it was not buffed. The ricochet damage of it was. And when I did a little bit of testing and I shot enemies with it, it just didn't seem like the ricochets were doing all that much damage compared to the main bullet of it. The actual shot of it was doing decent damage. But the ricochets, once again, just seem kind of meh. And this one also did fall into a sort of trap where the ricochets would, a lot of the time, easily miss enemies. So, you know, I think you could use this as an okay sniper. I would rate it, once again, somewhere maybe around 6 out of 10. It's an okay weapon at this point. It just didn't feel that great. Now, the last weapon I want to mention here is the Cutsman. Now, the Cutsman is the best out of all the weapons I've mentioned so far. It actually was only buffed a little bit. I think something like 18%. I forget exactly off the top of my head. But the Cutsman is actually pretty, it's pretty okay. Now, the Cutsman is at a point where you can kill Wotan with it in a reasonable amount of time. At least I could on Zane. I think maybe something like a 2 or 3 minute kill. And keep in mind, I am very good at killing Wotan. I know exactly how all of his phases work. I can basically manipulate him, and he will die as strong as my weapon can kill him. You know what I mean? And with that being said, the Cutsman felt good. I think I rated it a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10, probably closer to 7.5. It was basically doing work. 7.5 out of 10 is a very good rating in my opinion, but it was just not on par with some of the top tier weapons. If you want to get the fastest Wotan kill, you're never going to use a Cutsman. You're going to use something like a Backburner, a Plague Bearer, a Monarch, Sandhawk, stuff like that. And the Cutsman didn't, you know, stack up to that level, which is fine, I suppose. It depends what the devs want with it, but that's just my review and my opinion of it. All right, now finally, we are going to get into the list of weapons that I kind of want to showcase and give my opinions on them. These weapons are the Tigg's Boom and the Moonfire, which we will talk about separately. Then we have the King's and Queen's Call and the Lucian's and the Rowan's Call. So pretty much, first of all, we're going to go over all of the call weapons. First off, we're going to talk about the Lucian's Call. Now, the Lucian's Call and the Rowan's Call. The Rowan's Call kind of is in a spot where it feels the same as the Lucian's Call. I felt like the damage from both of them and the ricochets to other enemies nearby, I felt like they were pretty similar to play with. And I feel like the Rowan's Call might potentially need a slight buff in damage. I feel like the Lucian's Call is really good for a super fast firing weapon that never needs to reload. The Rowan's Call has a much smaller clip, so sometimes you can end up reloading it. And I feel like the Rowan's Call was nice to have a more recoil on a weapon, but you get that higher damage trade-off. What I really want to talk about is the Lucian's Call. They absolutely fixed this weapon. Now, once again, this one gets about a 7.5 out of 10 rating from me. It's not top tier, but I believe you can do true Maliwan takedown on Mayhem 10, at least the mobbing areas, with this weapon. And now we probably got some background footage playing while I'm talking. The Lucian's Call, at least on Zane, once again, with a lot of violence and playing dirty. I actually think Zane is probably one of the best in pushing this weapon's potential, and I think like this one was pretty adequately buffed. Once again, like 7.5 out of 10, even somewhere between 7 and 8 out of 10. It's not a top tier weapon, but it felt pretty good. And before this, the Lucian's Call felt horrendous. It did not feel good to use at all. And I think it's pretty cool what they did to it. Pretty much, you know, one other issue I see with the Lucian's Call is that it is locked to corrosive, fire, and cryo. So the Lucian's Call without some sort of bonus elements is not very good at getting through shields. Now, what I did was I used a cryo Lucian's Call with Sentinel Cryo and a cryo Old God Shield. So instead of using like shock or next to mags, I stuck to the drone and the barrier, and I just went full in on the cryo and tried to brute force our way through the shields, and it worked out pretty well. I am actually pretty happy with this Lucian's Call buff. And I just feel like they finally got it into a spot where it's pretty decent. They restored that accuracy of it, which I think was one of the one thing they should have never done to it was nerf the accuracy. I always felt like the Rowan's Call was the higher recoil, higher damage option, and the Lucian's Call was the higher accuracy, higher fire rate, but lower damage weapon. You know what I mean? And it was a trade-off, and they felt very similar, and they both felt pretty good to use. But back in Mayhem 3, when they nerfed the accuracy of the Lucian's Call, it just felt really bad since then. And, you know, they needed to buff the damage too to get it into Mayhem 10. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the King's and a Queen's Call. That King's Call and the Queen's Call, very powerful right now. Once again, at least on Zane, this is due to playing dirty and violent violence. I am able to spam it fast on Zane and get bonus projectiles. The King and Queen's Call, I rate a 9 out of 10. Now, the reason I say this is because there still is a requirement for, you know, hitting crit shots, especially while mobbing. It can be kind of difficult, especially with some of the craziness in the Maliwan takedown bridge and stuff like that. But the King's Call, the damage of it at least, and the effectiveness of it feels really, really good to me. I actually want you guys to use this weapon on other characters. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about this. I love this weapon. It is one of my top 5 favorites in the game in general, and I feel like they've brought it to a good spot. I don't even think this needs buffed anymore. Now, once again, I'd like to hear how it is on other characters. I would imagine Flak is the second best at using this most likely, just because he has a lot of damage, and Megavore and Fadeaway, he has some pretty good synergy. I really like this weapon on Zane because Violent Violence and Playing Dirty allows me to spam it and get bonus projectiles, but on top of that, Brain Freeze allows me to freeze enemies and then absolutely lay into them and finish them off quickly. So yeah, I'm pretty happy about the King's Call. Now finally, the last 2 weapons I want to talk about are the Tigg's Boom and the Moonfire. Now, both of these weapons are Maliwan takedown rewards, like you can only get these weapons from Wotan. I feel like these weapons should be 10 out of 10. I honestly feel like these weapons should be on par with the Plague Bearer, the Backburner, stuff like that. These are endgame weapons. You cannot accidentally get these as a world drop during the story. You can't even accidentally get them after the story or through TVHM. You have to fully get to level 50 before you're able to do the Maliwan takedown, or at least I'm pretty sure. I might be wrong about that. But you definitely have to beat the story before you do the Maliwan takedown. These are absolutely end game weapons. These, alongside some of the Mayhem 4 weapons, I feel like should be 10 out of 10s. Now, first, I want to talk about the Tigg's Boom. At least on Zane, I actually think Zane is not as good with this weapon as Moze or Flat can be. I think this weapon probably feels closer to a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 on Moze and Flak, and I'm pretty sure those two can get the most mileage out of this weapon, but I personally just feel like this should get that extra boost in viability, and just being a Maliwan takedown weapon, I just feel like it should absolutely shred. Like, I feel like this weapon should be able to boss, you know what I mean? And now I want to talk about the Moonfire. This is possibly one of my favorite weapons off of this list. I am playing some background footage in the back, and as you guys can probably see, I can kill some basic Maliwan enemies with this. We are on Mayhem 10 True Takedown mode. Now keep in mind, I'm also kind of good at the game. I understand the mechanics. I can get this weapon to work a lot better in my setup, and all of the gameplay footage and all the setups were optimized into making these weapons work since we are on Mayhem 10 True Takedown mode. And I feel like this weapon just doesn't have that kick to it. I feel like it is not a 10 out of 10. It is closer to a 7.5 or an 8. I would rather use a King or a Queen's Call than a Moonfire when we're talking about pure damage. Now, like I said in the background footage, you guys probably can see me one-tapping some of the basic Maliwan troops, and that's all good and fine. But once we get to some of the tankier enemies, I feel like I'm spending way too much time shooting them. And now I do know that they buffed the fire rate of this weapon, so they probably wanted us to spam it a little bit. But the thing is, I just feel like for a single target weapon, the time to kill is a little bit long, and I would really, really, really love to see this weapon become a 10 out of 10. This is a very fun weapon, first of all. It is a slightly skilled weapon. You have to hit headshots. You have to use overkill to make this weapon work. I just really want it to have that extra kick, and I think this could be a beloved weapon in the community. I feel like there is a sort of niche for this weapon that a lot of players could love and enjoy this weapon if it just had that extra kick to it. And like I said, I really just don't feel like it does. Like, we can easily one-tap these smaller troops, but once we get to a badass commando, we have to spam like 1 or 2 full clips into him to kill him. And for a single target weapon, like, this is not a mobbing weapon. It is a like a revolver, like a Desert Eagle almost. And it doesn't have that kick to it, in my opinion. So I would like to see this buffed again. I would like to see the damage go up higher. And one main point I want to point out is the damage on the Moonfire is less than a fully automatic beacon from DLC 3. My Moonfire has about 20k damage on it, and from the couple Moonfires I've had, I've they've always been within this range. And mine is also kinetic, meaning an elemental variant will have even less damage. And in my opinion, I think this thing needs like a strong boost, like something like a 30k damage card, a 40k damage card on Mayhem 10, level 60, you know, with the full Mayhem scaling and all of that. And yeah, so anyways guys, that was my review of all of the weapons that were buffed in last week's hotfix. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for more Borderlands 3 videos. Like I said, it'll really help me out in growing my channel and my community and all of that. Join the Discord, check me out on Twitch. That's pretty much going to be it for this video. Tell me what you think of these weapons in the comment section down below. Tell me if you agree, if you disagree. Have you gotten these weapons to work better than what I am saying? I want to know your guys' opinion, so let me know. Anyways, guys, I'll see you in the next one. I'm out.